Welcome back to Yashahime Princess Half Demon Anime Review episode number 26. Now, this one discussing episodes 30 to 33. There's one thing I forgot to mention last video. Maybe a couple things. One is the whole thing with the Rainbow Pearls. Excuse me. Where, aside from the fact that Zero has finally got all of her pearls back, aside from the fact she's looking at them, Zero herself doesn't really do a lot of anything in these episodes. Mostly put, a lot of the time she's seen in these episodes, like up until I think it was the episode 32, she mostly spends time at her house. First looking through her jewels, and also conversation with her with her adorable niece. And then finally in episode 32, she finally does something. She goes out. And she goes to a particular, demon aristocrat who's all about swallowing sorrow. And her sorrow is sealed, and then she in a way, bribes him, and with this mini galaxy that he has, which that's what he calls it, it's basically a wood absorbs sorrow. And that's it for Zero. Because in these episodes, she does very, very little. Oh, yes. Now, also in these episodes, the three girls, for the first time ever in this series, I know Morha sometimes basically does her own thing. Here, all three girls get their own plot threads in these episodes. The only one that's wrapped up by 33 is Setsuna's. You see, because she basically, in these episodes, because of course she's now can sleep now, they have this thing where in episode 30, where, get this is basically what happens. It is by far one of the weirdest things that's explained here. So, they do a couple things this one. Basically, this one explains Heisei's backstory. Also, this one does explain where Kohaku gets the scar across his nose. Yeah, the scar he's had. I assume he got some demon battle, but I did not know that this episode was explain it. Okay. Simply, you have Setsuna basically sleeping at Kaede's house, which is basically, I believe this is also the same house that Kagome lived at 6 months prior to the events of the series, because the series started from the flashback, where it took place 6 months after the events of the series, the original Inuyasha. Here's sleeping, and then she wakes up, and she's at a different place. Princess Aya is back. Yep, first time since episode 1. Yeah. And the reason why she's back, and this one's quite interesting to say the least, the reason why she's back. She kidnaps Setsuna to be her body double so she can go out and do whatever she wants. Why did I pick Setsuna? Well, they're both the same age, same height, easily fool her father. And I'm sure Setsuna probably thinks she's probably going to get paid for this. It's not clear, and they explain things, some nun who's going to basically be a teacher. Nope, it's Heisei. Yep. Who basically was roped into doing this by one of his sisters. Yes. Not the one who's popped up occasionally in the series. Oh no, his other twin sister. Yep. And this plays a minor role, from what I can tell, in the next couple episodes. Yeah, it plays a very minor role. And she's there very briefly, and then of course focus on Heisei. They're basically doing their lessons, and then the princess is being attacked by a demon, a giant octopus, and Heisei and Setsuna basically freed him, and Heisei figures out, tells her that he was supposed to be her teacher, and then she goes home and gets lectured by her father, and that's last see of that. And of course, the very next episode of her, in the case of Toa spends a lot of the time in episode 30 just simply looking for Setsuna, then she finally finds her. It's also in episode 30 that Morha has paid off most of her debt. She's down to one Ryu. Yep, one Ryu, which is probably the currency they probably had back then. So then, of course, after she's nearly paid it off, she's hired by Tatsushi, the raccoon dog, hired by him to be his bodyguard in order to take back his, former island. And she goes to visit the place, and then she meets up with Hakashi, making his first appearance in present day. And It's also really he was the one. Yeah, it was showing the flashback. He was the one who actually transported her to the Wolf Tribe, which is the first thing they've been mentioned since season 1. Yep. And it's great to see the guy again. It's interesting, though, that Moroku is not here yet. As a matter of fact, Moroku has not appeared in the present day quite a while. He's only appeared in present day once. I mean, he's appeared a few times in flashback, but not present day. And of course, they go off, and of course, apparently, they go to a place where there was this. Now, apparently, Kagome is revered there because she sealed off a dog, basically a full moon dog demon. Apparently off screen, and it's implied that this thing was released, this magic was sealed, and apparently this creature convinced Takashi's younger brother to overthrow him as the ruler of his clan. And then, of course, he unveils when of course, Maruha is captured because she's the daughter of Kagome, and, of course, daughter of, basically, Inuyasha. Excuse me. So, she was captured, and apparently her bow and arrow, and apparently her sword was taken from her. But apparently in her hair, she kept, get this, a Swiss Army knife. Toa gave her that one, because that is something that was probably not there in feudal era Japan. So Toa must have basically given that to her. Yep. Breaks out, and eventually she ends up confronting the Moon Demon, and she goes to Beniyasha form, fights him briefly, and of course her attack is deflected due to this dog demon's cheating ways. Oh boy, imagine when Toa meets him. Because he does a little reverse effect, like he reverses the attack on of course, Maruha, despite the fact the attack would have actually hurt the demon. Yep. Oh, this is why I was on play in like the very next episode. Yeah, which is probably going to be a two-part, by the way. Yep. Now, in the case of Toa, she ends up basically, first she's with Setsuna in this like quarry area, like this rock area, battling rock monsters, and of course she's ended up being taught a lesson by Kohaku about her basically being a bit reckless, and she admits, yep, she's actually reckless. And, of course, she meets the Rock Demon. And then, of course, she goes off, meets up with Riku and Rion, where they end up traveling for a bit. And, of course, Rion is riding on Kagome's bicycle. Yes, the very same bicycle that was left in... Get this. That was left in that era... That was left in feudal Japan by Kagome herself. Yep. And then, of course, they briefly confront Kinemaro. And, of course, as this thing pops up a couple times in the episode, where apparently that because her cream... By the way, her cream basically plays a minor role in these episodes. Yeah, a very small role. Where, because she puts hand cream because basically it's cold, making her skin very moist. That doesn't dry out, which is quite nice. So, of course, I have to do that too with my own skin. Yep. So, apparently that she sees Akutamaru. Who the heck is this creature? Because apparently and she sees it. Setsuna sees it. Oh, and of course, Kinemura's like, oh, you ever see a creature with a pinwheel in his hand? He's like, yes. And then, of course, when he's about to fight, then, of course, she can see him. Then she puts his sword away and quietly retreats because he probably thinks, probably shouldn't kill her just yet because she can see that creature that I really wanted to see. Yep. And after that, there's not much for her to do at all after that. Because most of the people, we switch to Setsuna, where she's offered to do a Demon Slayer expedition up north to deal with this village that was, let's just say, like, apparently it's like a very, very processed village, very greedy village, mind you. The headman, and of course, it's explored in the next couple episodes, where it turns the headman actually became the leader due to greed, and apparently his daughter was in love with a local deity. And it turns out they actually had a new demon slayer, who turns out he's actually the son of the deity. Yep, he's the son. I'm like, okay, I can see the resemblance. And apparently this deity also unleashed a bunch of flame bolt, like demon cattle on the village. But luckily enough, apparently that this five great treasure thing, which was given to the village by him, and due to, well, this was apparently also his girlfriend's idea, who happens to be a chief's daughter. And apparently, get this. So when Sansa severs their thread, because this is probably the first time she actually successfully did this, which probably could play a role later on. It turns out that the reason why the land is so prosperous, because the chief is using his daughter's dead body to prosper the land. And apparently she goes off with him in the afterlife, and apparently it's, oh, they say they're going to pay him. Nope, they have no money. It was all a big fat lie. Though they're able to conquer the slay human greed there. And then, of course, he senses something, and that's where the episode. Well, of course, the Demon Slayers were not fully trusting her because they think she's quite young. She's actually 14. Yep. Yeah, I would not be surprised if he'd say, like, despite the fact she's a female Demon Slayer, I would not be surprised if he'd say develop attraction to her, given the fact she's actually the daughter of somebody that his uncle very much has high respect for. Shishomaru. I would not be surprised about that. Wouldn't that be interesting pairing? A demon slayer and a half demon. That might be interesting to say the least. Yep. But yeah, not much else to say these episodes. It's interesting how they went this direction, but I'm probably going to deal with this more in the next 3 episodes of this series. So yeah, so that's going to be pretty much it for this particular review. I was thinking of doing Comic Con, but I'm thinking I'm going to wait a bit to do that because I really want to continue with the series. So next one will be the last 3 episodes of this review series for I'll discuss the last 3 episodes released dubbed. Excuse me. And then once this is finished up, I'm going to go to JoJo Bizarre Adventure Stone Ocean. Yep, that will be the next anime I go through, but I'm going to go through some comics first, then go through that. Yep, that won't take me very long. Probably take almost as long as once, only 12 episodes. So, yeah. So, to the next video. Bye.